The rich CEO ignored the single dad. Then the camera started rolling. The coffee spilled first. Then the silence came. Ethan Reyes stood in the lobby of Bracken Tower with a toddler asleep against his shoulder and a resume crushed in his fist. And the woman in the sharp gray blazer walked past him like he wasn't there. "Excuse me," Ethan said. "Miss Bracken, I had a 9 o'clock. Victoria Bracken didn't stop walking. She didn't even turn her head. Reschedule with my assistant." The elevator doors closed on her reflection before Ethan could answer. Nobody in that lobby knew his daughter hadn't eaten since 6 a.m. Nobody knew he'd walked 40 minutes because the bus pass didn't refill. Nobody knew this interview was the last one on a list that used to have 12 names on it. They just saw a tired man in a wrinkled shirt, holding a sleeping child, standing too close to the security desk. The guard's radio crackled. "Sir, you'll need to wait outside." Ethan didn't argue. He never argued. He picked up the diaper bag, adjusted his daughter's weight against his chest, and walked back through the revolving door into the cold. He didn't see the man in the corner of the lobby lower his phone. He didn't see that the phone had been recording the entire time. 3 floors up, in a glass office that smelled like fresh orchids and ambition, Victoria Bracken was already forgetting the man's face. She had a board meeting in 6 minutes, and a merger that mattered more than a resume she hadn't read. She didn't know her name was about to be everywhere by morning. She didn't know the man filming from the lobby corner ran a page with 4 million followers. She didn't know the caption he was writing right now. "Billionaire CEO ignores single father waiting with his sleeping daughter. Watch what she does next." Except Victoria hadn't done anything next. That was the problem. By the time Ethan got his daughter home and laid her down in the second-hand crib by the window, his phone had already started buzzing. He didn't check it. He never checked it. Notifications were for people who had something to look forward to. He sat at the kitchen table, put his head in his hands, and did the math again. Rent, formula, the interview that never happened. The 12 names that had become 1 and now 0. He didn't cry. He'd stopped letting himself do that months ago. Instead, he opened his laptop and kept applying. He didn't know that 40 minutes away, in a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows, Victoria Bracken's phone had started ringing in a way it never had before. "Victoria, have you seen this?" Her head of communications didn't knock. She just walked in, turned the monitor and pressed play. The video was 11 seconds long. It was enough. Victoria watched herself walk past a man holding a sleeping child, watched herself say 4 words without looking up, watched the guard's hand land on the man's shoulder. 2.1 million views. "Climbing." "Who is he?" Victoria said quietly. "We don't know yet. Find him." Her assistant hesitated at the door. "Victoria, there's something else." That interview slot. It wasn't a walk-in. He had an appointment. HR confirmed it an hour ago. Victoria said nothing. She was still looking at the frozen frame of the man's face, the exhaustion in it, the careful way his arms curved around the child, even as he was being asked to leave. She'd seen that face somewhere before. She just couldn't place it yet. By evening, the internet had built an entire story around 11 seconds of footage. Some of it was true. Most of it wasn't. Comment sections filled with judgment on a woman neither side had bothered to ask a single question. Ethan didn't know any of it. He was standing over the stove, stretching the last of the rice into 2 meals instead of 1, when there was a knock at the door. He wasn't expecting anyone. He never was. Through the peephole stood a man in a dark coat, holding a tablet against his chest like a shield. "Mr. Reyes, my name is Daniel Cho. I work for Victoria Bracken." Ethan's hand tightened on the doorframe. "I don't have anything to say to her. She's not asking you to say anything." He held up the tablet. On the screen was the video. Ethan's own face, mid-stride, the guard's hand on his shoulder. "She wants to know who you are, before the internet decides for her." Ethan looked at the screen for a long moment, then at the crib visible through the doorway behind him. "Tell her I don't need an apology," he said. "I needed a job." He closed the door quietly. It was the kind of quiet that said more than anything he could have shouted. Victoria read the message twice before she understood it wasn't a rejection. It was a correction. "I don't need an apology. I needed a job." She sat with that sentence longer than she'd sat with anything all year. At 11 that night she pulled the resume herself. HR had it buried under 100 others, untouched, unread the way most of them were. Ethan Reyes, logistics coordinator, 6 years. Laid off when his division closed. Sole caregiver, 1 dependent. Then a line further down that made Victoria go still. Previous employer, Halden Freight, acquired by Bracken Industries 2021. Victoria remembered the acquisition. She remembered the spreadsheet. She didn't remember the 400 people whose names had become a single line item marked redundant. She was looking at one of them. The next morning, Ethan's phone rang from a number he didn't recognize. He almost didn't answer. He was down to his last $5, and cold calls from unknown numbers usually meant somebody wanted money he didn't have. Mr. Reyes, this is Victoria Bracken. Ethan didn't say anything. I'd like to see you today, not for an interview, for a conversation. Whatever time works for you, I'll come to you. Why? Because I let a spreadsheet decide who mattered once, and I think it cost you your job. I'd like to understand what it cost. Ethan looked at his daughter sitting on the floor stacking two mismatched blocks. 2 o'clock, he said. I don't have anywhere else to be. Victoria arrived without an assistant, without a camera crew, without the entourage that usually walked 3 steps behind her. She knocked on an apartment door for the first time in longer than she could remember. Ethan opened it. Neither of them said anything for a moment. You didn't have to come here, Ethan said. I know. Then why? Because you didn't come to my building to ask for pity. You came because you were good at your job and somebody erased that with a merger memo. I owe you an actual conversation, not a headline. Ethan stepped aside and let her in. They sat at the same kitchen table where Ethan had done the math the night before. Victoria didn't touch her phone once. She listened, really listened, as Ethan talked about 6 years at Halden, about the daughter who didn't have a mother anymore, about the 12 interviews that had shrunk down to nothing. For the first time in years, Victoria Bracken didn't speak like a woman closing a deal. She spoke like someone taking notes on her own mistake. The board found out 2 days later when Victoria walked into the Monday meeting and set a single folder on the table. I want to restructure the logistics division, she said, and I want Ethan Reyes running it. The room went quiet the way rooms go quiet when someone with power says something nobody expected. He has no executive experience, one board member said. He ran a warehouse of 400 people with a 98% on-time rate for 6 straight years, Victoria said. That's not inexperience. That's a resume nobody bothered to read. Nobody argued after that. Not because they agreed, because Victoria Bracken hadn't asked, she'd decided. The internet moved on within a week, the way it always does. Onto the next 11 seconds of somebody else's worst moment. Nobody outside that building ever saw the follow-up. There was no viral video of Ethan walking into his new office, no caption, no comment section. Just a man unlocking a door with his name on it, setting down a diaper bag beside his desk, and looking out over a floor of people who used to be strangers. His daughter napped in the small room next door that hadn't existed a month earlier. The one Victoria had insisted on building without being asked. Ethan didn't need the apology. He'd gotten something better. He'd gotten seen. And somewhere on the top floor, Victoria Bracken stood at her window, watching the city below, finally understanding that the 4 words she'd once thrown over her shoulder, reschedule with my assistant, had cost her nothing, and had cost another man almost everything. She never let it happen again.